We are all a little depraved and debaucherous. Here is the king of podcasts.
Apologies, I was not here yesterday to go and record the Praise and the Debaucherous episode because I was out at a conference doing coverage for the full-time podcast network that I work for. And I was in Hollywood, Florida, just outside of Miami, for the Bazinga Cannabis Capital Conference. So I had that. I had a bunch of interviews that were scheduled and lined up. I didn't get home till about 11 o'clock last night. No time to prep. But I'm going to sneak this in. I'm also going to do my wrestling podcast a little bit later on tonight and have them both all ready to go. Because that's how I operate. King of Podcasts does not slide on doing content. I don't like missing weeks. I don't like missing episodes. So as much as possible, unless I have nothing in terms of content worthy to give you an episode, then I need to be able to go ahead and do right by my audience. However size it is, I'm going to do right by you. I'm going to do an episode. So anyway, thanks for listening in, finding the show as you always do. The online dating wasteland. And I try to think of myself about how long ago I stopped online dating in general. And don't get me wrong. I'm saying the traditional online dating. The sugar daddy site is a different story. Because I've noticed that's the real place to go ahead and start having actual connections. And you just got to filter through just like everybody else. You got to filter through some of the emotional damaged ones to get to the right ones, or to get to the ones that are not emotionally damaged. The ones that are damaged to the point that, it's only money to them. And that's all that matters. That they want basically a brainless ATM machine. Now, even on the online dating sites, you're going to have girls that are like that. And look, we've already talked about both sides of the spectrum. When it comes to women that are gold diggers and guys now that might actually subscribe to that soft guy era. The girls who like sprinkle, the guys who like drizzle. Think about it. Now, we did some good, I had some good comments about it. Obviously, my audience was aware of what I'm talking about when it comes to the soft guy era, and they commented about it. So, a few comments from last week. Lolly for TW Das Original. He says, or he or she says, you can see that it is fun because the kings aren't angry, but polite in the comment section. Soft guy era can be explained in one word, mirror. Drizzle. So yeah, look at yourself in the mirror and realize that what these guys that are coming on the soft guy era, they're just projecting back what they've been getting from you women for a long time. Another person, social chlamydia 8533 says, drizzle queens. And LC Bundy writes, fucking hilarious. That's what I got on the YouTube feed. And, I always have my episodes over on youtube.com/King of Podcasts. So go look for it. Always have my content there. Please make sure to subscribe, like, share, comment, all that good stuff when I do it. Because it'll be really awesome of you. Now, the appeal to do online dating. I've thought about it. Listen. I really thought about the fact of if I went back and did it, if I really put a real concerted effort, and this time I said to myself, look, I'll say to myself now, the mindset I would have had going onto an online dating site and meeting someone would be a lot different than what it was because I was really actively seeking a relationship and I was really interested. Right now, I don't feel like that. I've been very content. I've been pretty much forever single, and I don't mind that. But on this program, I don't want it to be that everybody else that's younger than me just gives up on it either. Like, take your chance at it. See if it does well for you, because at least young people need to go ahead and at least have a chance to find love. Because maybe love isn't meant to be in their life. Find it. And see if you can try to go through and not get hurt in the process. And if you do, know that, at least until you're 40, if it hasn't gone for you yet, then maybe you just figure out something else to do. Like you got to keep trying, keep pursuing, keep chasing. A hopeless romantic, because maybe something will come of it. I still believe that today. And so I haven't given up on love, but I'm not going to go to the dating apps to find it. Because the dating apps are not really made for older people. I mean, sometimes they are, but really, who's going to be on those dating apps? The people that have basically clocked out of giving anyone a chance at anything. Because every time I've seen any woman, even when I was younger and I approached older women, the older women were so stuck in their ways and so conservative because they don't dress up anymore. They don't want to give any effort anymore. They don't want to open up their hearts. They were so cold and so bitter and so closed up. Like the kind of hoops you need to go jump around. You'll do that for a younger woman, but not for an older woman who's already gone through divorce, has children, or has grown up children, or the ones that might have had relationships and they went by the wayside. No kids to show for it. Basically, maybe some pets at home, but they're not showing they have a whole lot of people outside of their family to love. That they will not to love anybody else outside their bloodline. And that's it. Because I know that for myself, I'm pretty sure if given the opportunity, and I'm sure a lot of other people feel the same way. There's a story that comes out about middle-aged British people, and this is from Wales Online. They talk about they look for love as they believe in chance encounters. Dating apps and speeding apps are being left aside as true love will happen naturally. Right. Because I don't want to go through expecting someone to happen. But then another thing too is that I'm also not trying to prepare myself for that chance encounter. But this is more of what they're talking about here. The idea that you want to go ahead and, you take care of yourself. You do what you do to self-improve. You live your life in hopes that someone else will appreciate who you are. But I think about it all the time. There's so many different things about myself that I always think like everybody should be fascinated because I have such a wide range. Listen, if I put a dating profile up now, if I were to put it out right now, if I'm single and looking, I'm saying to myself, I have a very wide range of tastes in music. I mean, I promote 4 different playlists on Spotify that are wide ranging. I love new music. I go to the movies regularly, once or twice a week. When I think about what I used to go and do a lot of, I like going out to dinner and a movie. I like to go out to restaurants. I like to go out and, do the bars and clubs thing. I did it for a long time. And I might still catch myself doing that now. I was never big on concerts or festivals. Never did that. So the fact that I never did it doesn't mean I wouldn't be interested. It doesn't mean I wouldn't try it. Going to the beach, boating, fishing, playing sports. I'm much more active in sports now. I could play tennis if I wanted to be. Racquetball. I play basketball a lot now. Biking, walking, kind of find somebody that also is very much health conscious. I can see that too. But I mean, one of those things too is that I was reading a lot about my sign being Sagittarius and the fact that a Sagittarius male is like a cancer to some women because they feel like it's all narcissism and manipulation, which is why I talk about it a lot because obviously my sign always attests to that. And I can tell you that one of the things that I was very much understanding about myself when I got older is that I did try to be manipulative and I did show signs of narcissism. I'm not afraid to say that now. I've come to grips with understanding myself better. And that's the part too. Like, I'm not looking down on myself. I reflect. And I've reflected for a long time. And, hell, going out to the conference yesterday, most of the people that would have seen me at that conference some 4 years ago, the last time I went before COVID, right before COVID, they would have seen me there and I would have seen, I was about a good 80 to 100 pounds heavier. And I was still the same person, but it's like I was also not doing all the interviews myself. I was kind of like in the background because I was working for somebody else, a client. But I didn't have a client to deal with this time around. I went to the show by myself with the management team, right? We were all there to kind of divide and conquer. I had my scheduled interviews for me, and I did them, and I had a good time doing it. And, walking the show floor, running the people I already talked to and get to know, and some other people that I've been working with for months and getting to talk to them was really nice. That was cool. And also not having the feeling when I go to a conference like I used to, where I might find women that I would always see at shows like this and be like fawning over or admiring. Like maybe some of you have done that before where you might have met someone that you met at a conference or something like, or some other place. And then you connect on social media just because you had that attachment to them. And I can tell you there's a number of girls I still follow because of that. There was one I followed along for years and I saw where she was going through, and now she's pregnant and she has her significant other passed along. So I stopped following her because I see everything's going well for her. And I was like, but either which way, women that I always notice and I admire, I would always kind of like follow along with. And after that, it was like, okay, well, and then we just move along with our lives. It's like, I stopped trying to think about, oh, maybe there's a chance of something with them. Because the funny part was, like, I always met people that were always a lot of girls were very friendly, very nice. Hell, there was one that I saw that, I probably need to reach back out to her because I'm going to offer an interview for the network because she has an interesting thing going in terms of cannabis, new product, holistic wellness, a whole like kind of hybrid type of vibe of holistic wellness and, medicine. Cool. And all I noticed was, she recognized the microphones that were in my hand and my recorder and saw the mic flags of cannabis radio. I was like, oh. So she kept looking my direction. And I was with a cohort of mine. And I remember I was on one side of the hallway and then there was the expo hall and I was seeing her and she just kept looking back. And I was like, you know what? I should have said something to her. On a whim, I said, oh, you know what? I'm going to not follow and walk right up to her because there's a way for me to go and walk in the expo hall, walk out the other way, and kind of like cut off at the pass. And I ran into her again. And then she saw me again, smiled, and I introduced myself. And she was asking me about the podcasting stuff. I was like, oh, great. And I went off on it. And that's one of those things they talk about where, like, what you do for a living and what certain things that you might do that someone might be fascinated by, to not like take it lightly. Because if somebody's interested in what you do and it's like, well, you already do it. And it's like, it's just part of your thing. Well, that person doesn't know. And podcasting for some people is very fascinating. So like, okay, I'll talk about it. I don't mind. I'll play up to their curiosity. That's what I did. And she follows me on Instagram now. I followed her, and I'll reach out to her and it's like, hey, let's go and do the interview and we'll talk. It'll be nice just to kind of have that moment just to kind of bond and whatever. And that's it. But if it was, 10, 15 years ago when I first got into the space and did conferences, I probably would have been a lot more like getting a little more touchy-feely, a little bit closer. Like there was one girl I remember I met and, there's a lot's changed with her since I met her. And I just remember, hell, man, at one point we were talking and like we were just getting along great. And it was about podcasting, me doing the podcasting stuff. And this was at the lobby bar of the Midtown Manhattan Hilton on 54th and 6th. And I remember like this girl, I called her Marsha Brady because she had that long, stringy, like, that long, straight hair, pretty face, just wholesome, just beautiful girl. And somewhere in the mix, I was like, we sat at that lobby bar on the couches there, and different people just kept coming along that I met that I already knew from the shows and on. I must have sat with her for at least 3-4 hours. And at one point, I remember just put my arm around her and like just kind of holding her and giving her a hug and just like, we got that close. And kid you not, one of the bosses was like, why aren't you doing something with her? Hell, you got a room upstairs. Why don't you go and ask her to come on up with you? And I did. But she was like, no. And I was like, okay, that's fine. Politely declined. But I was like, early 30s and totally would be like, maybe a chance encounter in a different city would have done something for me, a big difference. Like she's from the South, from Arkansas, and I'm from Florida. And I was like, I don't know. Who knows what could happen? But at least I have this moment. I was always thinking about that part too. That whatever chance I had with someone that I was interested in, I'm attracted to, at least I get a moment with them. That's what I used to think. And that in the dating world used to be the reason I even went on dates, because at least maybe I'll have that one moment. I'll get that one kiss, that one hug, that one something. And I actually noticed myself this time around when I was at the conference that I went there, and one of the people that I work with, she's a very attractive medical professional that works now in the area of psychedelics. Listen, completely platonic. Listen, she's married and all that stuff, and I was not even worried about that part. I knew about all that beforehand, and I've been working for her for 8 months so far. She's a client with us, and we do great programming together. And it's the first time I got to meet her because I never go to these shows. And she sees me, I see her, big hug, right? All this time. And, I did say one thing I was being very complimentary because, in person, she's stunning. She's a beautiful girl, beautiful woman. And I says, you know what? Zoom doesn't do you any justice because she looks so much better in person and so nice. And honestly, demanding when she works with me, but it was nice to just be unplugged from everything and meeting at this conference. This was after the first day of the event. And all I know is that one of the other cohorts that I had with me, the same one that was walking with me when I went to meet the other girl, I was talking with, the client, and I noticed that the client, the cohort that I had, a younger guy, was very not so much overly friendly and all, but you could just tell just had an admiration of which I didn't have, but I understand why they did. The management and all, they got a much closer bond to her. And I was I wasn't getting that kind of bond. I don't do it like that. And one of the things I got from the client, because she made the point of, and I was kind of not expecting it, but she happens to like my voice. She's she hears the voice that she's talking to like you do on this program. And I'm talking to this microphone. And she was like, it's the same person. It's I can't believe this voice is the same person I'm talking to right now. I was like, yes, it is. And I think that's the one thing I didn't think about, the fact that maybe some people really do enjoy my voice on the air because it's soothing. I've learned how to talk, how to enunciate and not kind of stumble over words for the most part, about 95% of the time. And it's those things where okay, it's me understanding myself better and what people might like about me, but it's not been all the way through to where I pulled the trigger. So chance encounters haven't really done much for me, and I don't worry about that anymore. And online dating and the pursuit, not for me anymore either. I haven't thought about it. It just doesn't matter. And that's okay. What am I going to do about it? So this story from Wales Online talks about chance encounters. They take from a survey, and this is for people, they say middle age are over 50, seniors. They would say seniors here. 58% of them say their love life is not the best, bad, worse than ever, or even prefer not to say. More than half. And then that was over 2,000 Brits that were over 50. Some are comfortable using dating apps or websites, but the willingness to do so declines with age. 1 in 5 45 to 54-year-olds would turn to online dating as their first port of call. 15%, if you go a next set older, 55 to 64. And over 65, under 10% would actually use online dating apps. Well, part of the reason we're not using dating apps as we get older is because we're getting smarter. Obviously, beauty becomes wisdom. That's what we'll learn. That's how we learn about it. And then what about the younger group, right? What are they thinking about? There's a story from Washburn University, the Washburn Review, a college newspaper, and they talk about this, and they say, that 3 in 10 Americans have used a dating app or site. 12% have married or been in a committed relationship with someone they met through online dating. We don't know how many of those got divorced. Let's keep that in mind too. So they talked to a sophomore psychology and sociology major, Lois Lillystrom. She thinks that dating apps make finding relationships harder because many have high expectations when meeting someone online. She goes on to say, quote, I think in a way they've made them harder because you have a lot of people that live online and they have preset expectations of this partner to be able to provide everything for them that isn't necessarily going to be great to have them. And then they talked to another student who says it's rare for people to find their true love or get married to their matches on dating apps. Julia Johnson, she's a sophomore music education major. She says, quote, you don't hear that very often. Most often you hear about whack Tinder dates, you hear about ghosting, hear about all the negatives. You rarely hear about the positives. And then one of the speculations of the amount of failed experiences on dating apps is a result of the ratio of successful and unsuccessful matches, or that people enjoy capitalizing on bad dating experiences. So now we know that online dating, if you've heard me on this program, we've talked about the death of online dating, jacking up the prices on the subscriptions, adding advanced features, setting unlimited likes, setting dating preferences, all this stuff that doesn't help or make any difference. Cameron Dollahan is a senior art major. She thinks the apps are good for students to meet new people if they're new to the area. Quote, "It is a good way to get to know people, even if you're not actually looking for a relationship. So I think a lot of college students might do that to find more people, especially if they're trying to move to a new city or even state." But remember, we already know in a lot of these studies from Seeking.com of how many college students are on that site of women seeking sugar daddies. Because many of those women that are on those sites are college-age women. Or a lot that are in their 20s and 30s, to be honest. According to the Pew Research Center, 54% of women, 25% of men felt overwhelmed by the amount of messages they received on dating apps. 64% of men, 40% of women felt insecure about the lack of messages. That just goes around like, gendered lines that you would kind of expect. But now the negatives. There's more negatives than there are forever. Because you know what? Now we're hearing more about everything. One of the areas that we're hearing about is, if you even get to the date. There's a story from CNBC about who should pay for the first date. According to dating experts, the man should generally pay when it comes to heterosexual couples. And on the dating sites, it's because men are often the ones asking to go on the date. Right. If we ask for the date, we pay for the date. And so they talked to Erica Eden, an online dating coach, and Blaine Anderson, a dating coach for men.
So it's interesting. Who should pay at the first date depends on who's going on the date and what your expectations are on the date. If you are the kind of person that finds it pleasurable or attractive for somebody else to pay for the date for you, then that's something you should allow for them to do or to see if it happens. It depends on each individual person who's going on the date and what your dating expectations are and what you're attracted to.
The question that seems to kind of...
So they're trying to talk about the fact that if they enjoy the idea of somebody paying for the date, that's the other part. I was like, what? Some other people talking about the fact about how if they're dating, if people find that spark that creates love. So the idea of trying to find instant chemistry. InStyle.com talked about this. Before you call it quits over a lack of instant chemistry or diving all in with Sparky Online, with somebody that you feel like you get a spark with, they talked to relationship experts Logan Urey and Susan Trombetti about those infamous sparks and why you're probably better off letting your relationship simmer. When someone plays games or makes you chase them, you may feel excitement and you think are sparks. But likely you're just confusing anxiety for chemistry. Sometimes the butterflies you get are actually alarm bells. So these people are actually trying to go ahead and debunk the dating game. They're saying that the spark sometimes that they get in a relationship is more of an indication of how charming someone is or narcissistic, less a sign of a shared connection. And that sometimes the spark can be superficial or what Trombetti calls a false start. Now, that's probably true for some people that they are using that dating approach to create sparks to lure in somebody as like a prey, like a predator. I can see that happening, but the sparks need to go on both sides. And you got to be smart enough and strong-hearted enough to realize you can't just believe that you're getting a spark with someone just because the expectations you have for them are getting higher because of what you want it to be. Because that's the other thing that I think people also get is our expectations when we start dating and the possibilities. We have this thought of what this person is going to be if we're together. I am notoriously guilty of that about every girl I ever talked to. Every one of them. And so I always got disappointed. And that was a big mistake on my part, but I did that to myself. What can you do, right? So they say you should let a relationship simmer. And that, playing the waiting game. Familiarity breeds attraction. Psychologists call it the mere exposure effect. We're attracted to feel safe around familiar things and people. And you can miss out on a really great person just because you didn't initially feel those fireworks, when in reality, many healthy long-term relationships don't start with a spark because they have a strong foundation. But the other part we don't want to worry about is that if we go on to a relationship or trying to pursue a relationship, it just becomes a friendship. Because what's happening is guys, I think, have a timeline, have a deadline as to when we're going to see if anything actually comes of a relationship or dating someone. 3 to 4 dates. That's it. If you don't get where the girl's feeling like the sparks you're trying to give bring her closer to you, and I don't think it has to do with like getting laid by the 3rd or 4th date, but there's something there that has to be like absolutely something causes something to go farther. But I think guys also have to realize that, you know what, just having sex on the 3rd or 4th date is not going to make the biggest difference. I mean, I don't know if it, because I think we don't have to worry about the waiting game anymore. Like, I don't think guys are putting that mindset of like, listen, if we're going to try to get something out of a girl, we're going to just try to go ahead and get laid. We're not going to wait 3 or 4 dates anymore. Those kind of rules are thrown by the wayside because if guys just want to go ahead and just be gigolos and just go hook up culture is going to be like a date or two. We're not waiting 3 or 4 dates anymore. I think those days are long gone. I don't think anybody's doing that anymore. I really don't. Now, the other thing too is that because of social media, because of just the bad advice and all the things that are being thought process of like the fantasy land that some women are being brought into thinking now. Okay, don't even think about the fact that, oh, women are going to be waiting to have kids to be married. No, forget about that part. But there's also the part where guys are already so enamored, just like some women are, right? With watching anime, playing video games, and watching someone that is not human interact or give the kind of emotions or the endorphin rises that we get to be attracted to someone. Now we have AI girlfriends. Analytics Insight talks about this. We've seen this. Listen, I don't think I'd ever get myself caught up in something like that, but like, wow, it's happening. You know, the ascent of AI girlfriends, virtual friendship applications, starting to become out there more and more. We talked to some folks that did the AI girlfriend. You remember that? Don't forget, I did a story where I talked to George Mark, Jeff Dillon at Dream GF about building the perfect dream girlfriend. We talked about this, and they brought up the idea of it. And remember that part of what they do isn't that far attached away from porn, because they can do a porn site with these same kind of AI girlfriends. But they can also do this here, where they can create virtual buddies intended to reproduce heartfelt connections. And remember, the girlfriends can look blemish-free. You know, they can look with the body that they want, and it doesn't matter. These AI sweethearts enjoy the benefit of being exceptionally adaptable and receptive to client inclinations. And clients can customize the partner's character's interests, surprisingly actual appearance to suit their inclinations. And the degree of customization permits clients to make their optimal accomplice. Yeah, so think Anna de Armas and Blade Runner. We're going to get there. It's going to happen. And women don't realize that the rules that men are following right now, yeah, we know that some of the dating game part has been taken away. Look at that story I talked about from the dating coaches. They all think it's like narcissistic in some cases. And there's supposed to be some spark that comes out of it. They're not going to think there is going to be a spark. And then there's the ones that, you know, the chase is not there anymore because they also realize the money and the attention that's required, the waiting game that can be played on by a woman because they want to just be able to have the dates. Like, what's their intentions too? It can be just as toxic. The toxicity is all around us. And dating apps are the major culprit. Let's just put it like that. And that's the show for tonight. So I hope you appreciate me getting on here and doing tonight's show a little bit later than before. Well, we got it done. Now I got to do my wrestling podcast and take care of that next. But I hope all of you can really appreciate where I'm coming from with all this. And, you know, that we're trying to help people get a little bit better about it, you know. We know that dating apps are out there and they're not really helping people out. But maybe those chance encounters might work out. And maybe you're not looking for long term. Maybe you just want to be a little depraved and debaucherous.